Detroit, we need to talk. Because while everybody's been staring at the top of the depth chart this training camp, waiting for the guys they already know about to confirm what we already believe, somebody has quietly been kicking the door down at Meyer Performance Center and screaming for attention. And no, it's not who you think. Before we get into that, let's set the scene. This is Detroit Scope, and if you're new here, we live and breathe Lions football. Every practice report, every depth chart shuffle, every piece of gossip flying out of Allen Park lands here first, wrapped in the drama it deserves. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and honestly, every single person who hits that button is helping us build something real for this fan base. More coverage, faster breakdowns, deeper dives, and a bigger seat at the table when it comes to talking Lions football the way it should be talked about. So if you're riding with us, make it official. Hit subscribe. Now let's get into it. Training camp entered its second week, and the vibes in Allen Park are, frankly, dangerously good. This is a team that walked into camp with sky-high expectations, real Super Bowl buzz, and a roster that looks like it was built in a lab specifically to torment the rest of the NFC North. And through the opening stretch of practices, outside of one significant absence, the injury report has been shockingly quiet. That is not something Lions fans are used to saying out loud without knocking on wood immediately afterward, so consider this as knocking. Let's start with the story that has become impossible to ignore: cornerback Nick Whiteside. If that name doesn't ring a bell yet, get used to it because it's about to. Whiteside is a former undrafted free agent out of Saginaw Valley State. A Michigan kid from Auburn Hills who has bounced around the fringes of the roster since 2023, cut, re-signed, practice squad, waived again, brought back again. The kind of career path that usually ends quietly. Instead, Whiteside has turned the opening week of camp into his personal highlight reel. He's got his hands on more footballs than anyone else in the entire defensive backfield through the first several practices, including a diving interception off quarterback Teddy Bridgewater during an 11-on-11 period. Dan Campbell has been raving about him, telling reporters there hasn't been a single practice yet where Whiteside didn't make a play. Not one. That's the kind of thing coaches don't say about camp bodies. That's the kind of thing coaches say about players who are about to force their way onto the field. Now, does that mean Whiteside is walking into the starting lineup opposite DJ Reed? Not so fast. Rock Ya-Sin has actually been the steadiest of the group so far, getting the bulk of the first team reps and looking like the guy with the early edge for that number 2 corner job. Ennis Rakestraw is right there too, flashing the traits that made Detroit excited about him in the first place, even if the consistency still comes and goes. But Whiteside has planted himself firmly in that conversation, and for a guy who came into the league with almost zero fanfare, that alone is a story worth screaming about. And look, we have to say it, Terry Arnold's departure from this roster is a subplot that still lingers over this cornerback room. However you feel about how that all went down, the swagger and confidence this group is playing with right now, led by a genuine competition rather than a name being handed a job, is a completely different energy than what Lions fans watched a year ago. Speaking of the secondary, let's talk safety, because this is where things get spicy. Brian Branch has been working alongside Kirby Joseph off to the side with trainers, and he is officially expected to open the season on the physically unable to perform list. But here's the part that should make Lions fans breathe easy. There have been no setbacks. None. Branch has reportedly been running and cutting on the side, and the expectation floating around camp is that he could be back on the practice field as early as late camp or early September. And honestly, there is zero reason to rush him. Detroit is not desperate at safety right now. Chuck Clark and Christian Izien are more than capable of holding the fort. And if Kirby Joseph ends up back in the mix as well, that room becomes an embarrassment of riches. The smartest version of this story is the boring one. Let Branch heal all the way, ease him back in, and let him arrive right around the time the season actually starts matching. A guy who's fresh in October and November is worth infinitely more than a guy who's rushed back in August and breaks down in week 6. Now for the part of this update that stings a little. The rookie class has taken a couple of hits, and it's the kind of news that makes you wince even when, deep down it's not the end of the world. Second-round pick Derek Moore, the pass rusher Detroit traded up to grab out of Michigan, left practice with a groin strain and is expected to miss somewhere in the range of 7 to 10 days. Dan Campbell called it minor, which is the good news, but it still stings because Moore had genuinely been flashing early in camp, and every single rep matters for a rookie trying to climb a depth chart before the games start counting. Losing even a week and a half of reps at this stage of the calendar is not nothing. The tougher blow belongs to 4th-round linebacker Jimmy Rolder, who left practice early with a hamstring issue and, according to Campbell, is going to be out for a while. The silver lining, and it is a real one, is that this is not a season-ending injury. Campbell was clear about that. But out for a while is never the phrase you want attached to a promising rookie's name during the exact window when he's supposed to be stacking good days and building trust with the coaching staff. The Lions have already responded to the linebacker room getting thinner by bringing in veteran depth, and defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard has publicly maintained that he still expects Rolder to contribute at some point this season once he's healthy. So this isn't a disaster. It's a delay. But in a league where every practice rep is currency, delays cost something. On the flip side, there's actually a lot of feel-good injury news too, and it's worth appreciating because Lions fans have earned the right to enjoy some good injury luck for once. Rookie offensive tackle Blake Miller, who had his reps limited briefly, is back to a full workload. And guard Christian Mahogany, who had been working his way back from the non-football injury list, returned to practice and immediately started splitting first-team reps at left guard. That's a genuinely encouraging development for an offensive line that desperately needed both continuity and competition heading into the season. Let's talk about Jahmyr Gibbs for a second because there's some noise here worth cutting through. Gibbs has missed multiple consecutive practices, but let's be clear about why. He's currently working through a new contract as the running back market around the league continues to heat up, and he's essentially watching from the sideline rather than putting his body at risk before that deal gets done. And honestly, good for him. This is a guy who is unquestionably one of the most explosive offensive weapons in football, and there is absolutely zero reason for Detroit to rush him onto the practice field while a new contract is being hammered out. Teammates have been vocal about how much they value him. Jameson Williams was seen chatting with Gibbs on the sideline and later called him one of the best, going as far as saying Gibbs should be the highest paid running back in the league. Whether or not that specific number ever materializes, the sentiment tells you everything about how this locker room views him. Let the business side sort itself out. When Gibbs is fully healthy, fully paid, and fully ready to roll, that offense becomes an absolute nightmare for opposing defenses, and a couple of missed camp reps in early August will be a distant memory by the time Week 1 rolls around. Now let's pivot to a name that deserves a lot more attention than he's getting. JMO. Jameson Williams has become one of the quieter success stories of this entire Lions rebuild, and it's worth pausing to remember just how much draft capital Detroit gave up to go get him, fully knowing he wasn't going to play much of anything in year one because of suspension and injury recovery. That's the kind of move that either ages brilliantly or becomes a cautionary tale. And so far, it's aging brilliantly. Every single year, Williams has gotten better, faster, more dangerous, more essential to what this offense is trying to do. He continues to stand out through this camp as one of the most explosive players in the entire building. And paired with Amon-Ra St. Brown, this receiving core has real, legitimate star power heading into a season where the Lions have every reason to believe they can compete for it all. And that brings us to the offensive line, which might genuinely be the most improved unit on this entire roster heading into the season. Last year, if Taylor Decker went down, Detroit's answer at tackle was thin at best. This year, that problem appears to be solved. Miles Frazier has been getting positive buzz working at both guard and tackle, giving Detroit the kind of interior-exterior flexibility that every good offensive line needs. Add in Juice Scruggs as depth at center, Cade Mays upgrading the room further, and Christian Mahogany working his way back into first-team reps, and suddenly a unit that was a legitimate weakness last season looks like a genuine strength. That is the kind of quiet, unglamorous improvement that doesn't trend on social media, but wins football games in November and December when the weather turns and depth becomes everything. So where does that leave us? A cornerback room with legitimate, exciting competition at the number 2 spot. A safety group that's deep enough to survive Brian Branch easing back in on his own timeline. A couple of rookies nursing minor injuries that sting in the short term but shouldn't derail anything long term. A superstar running back smartly protecting himself while his new contract gets finalized. And an offensive line that finally, for the first time in a while, looks like it has actual answers instead of just hope. Add in one of the more favorable schedules in the league, with Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown entering the season in the primes of their careers, and it becomes very hard to look at this roster and find a glaring weakness. The pieces are there. The depth is there. The swagger is there. This is shaping up to be one of the most talented, most balanced rosters Dan Campbell has ever put on the field in Detroit, and training camp so far has only reinforced that belief. Keep your eyes on Nick Whiteside, because that cornerback battle is nowhere near finished. Keep your eyes on the health updates for Derek Moore, Jimmy Rolder, and Brian Branch, because how quickly this team gets whole again will shape how explosive they look out of the gate. And keep your eyes on this channel, because we're going to be right here every single day of camp, bringing you the updates before anyone else does. If you enjoyed this breakdown, do us a favor and smash that like button. Drop a comment letting us know who you think wins that number 2 cornerback job. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. We are closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you gets us one step closer to making this channel the number 1 stop for Lions coverage online. Detroit Scope, signing off. We'll see you at the next practice report.